why did you decide to go to China instead of doing it at home or elsewhere? Was it about the price? What was it about?
Well, unfortunately, last year, CAR T cell therapy was not available either publicly or privately in Australia. It had been considered by the government for quite a few years, but we were still waiting for the funding to come through. So it wasn't an option in Australia. I looked at going to the USA and to the UK, but they were so prohibitively expensive, it wasn't possible. So I got on good old Dr. Google and started working out where else in the world I could go. And I came across some stories of New Zealanders going to China for CAR T cell therapy. So I contacted one through Facebook, we chatted, I got in contact with a professor in Shanghai and arranged to go there. So when I arrived, next day I was straight into the hospital for 3 days of investigations, which include bone marrow aspiration, which I will add is not done under sedation in China, a lot of blood tests and CT PET. They then decide if you're suitable and if your bloods are suitable for the treatment. Once they've decided that, they have to harvest the T cells. And that involves basically being hooked up to something that's essentially a little bit like a dialysis machine for 4 or 5 hours. There's a filter in that, and that filters off your T cells. I then was discharged from hospital the next day. The T cells were sent off. Once they know that they're ready, I was contacted. I went into one of the big hematology hospitals in South Shanghai. I had 3 days of chemotherapy. And then the manufactured T cells were flowed down from Beijing. Funny enough, the reinfusion, it takes 45 minutes and it's really quite an anticlimax. But I can tell you 12 hours after that, I started to get sick with temperatures, feeling unwell. And you just have to put up with that, treat it, paracetamol or whatever. Be mindful infections. I think I felt really unwell for the first week. But by 2 weeks, I was feeling really not too bad at all. After 2 weeks, I had another bone marrow aspiration, and that actually amazingly came back as completely negative for myeloma cells. So they were very happy. I was very happy. I was discharged from hospital. I spent another 2 weeks in Shanghai, where I went to the outpatients department to be checked over. And then when that was all right, I flew home to Australia.
Can you tell me, you said the China's treatment was a lot cheaper than the one that you would have got in the United States. Can you give us kind of the price difference that you personally witnessed when you were doing your research?
So I worked out that to go to either the USA or the UK would probably cost me about $1 million Australian dollars. And that was assuming that I had no complications, no prolonged stay, no admissions to intensive care. If I had, complications, then it was probably going to bankrupt us. When I added up what we'd spent in China, I'd spent 110 Australian dollars on the hospitals and the treatment. And then on top of that, there was obviously the travelling costs and the hotel costs and the cost of living. So it's about 10 times cheaper. I was in China for a total of 7 weeks last year, from October to December. Some of that time was taken up with investigations before I was accepted for the treatment. But the thing that seems to be much faster in China than is in Australia, and certainly is reported in the United States, is once they've harvested your T cells and they send them off for manufacturing. Mine were back from Beijing, ready to go within 8 days. Now, looking at the USA, they report it takes between 2 to 3 months to manufacture CAR T cells. And unfortunately, what that means is some people's myeloma develops so quickly that they are not able to receive the manufactured T cells because they're already too sick.
And how successful is this treatment, obviously for your case, but also, generally speaking, in terms of the success rate of this treatment to treat this blood cancer?
For me personally, it's been very successful. I was lucky enough to get out there with a low tumour load, which statistically makes the treatment more successful. But after 7 months being back in Australia, I'm now in complete remission. I kept in contact with the person I contacted in New Zealand, and he was there 6 months before me, and he is also doing extremely well. Really, we don't have the longitudinal data to compare it with the other trials yet. But from a personal experience, it's been fantastic. I haven't felt this good since before I was diagnosed.